Hello, and welcome to our final lecture of our History of Clothing and Fashion class. Today we're going to talk about the fashion industry. I would just like to let you know that it was a pleasure having this class with you, even though I didn't see any of you. I think I saw one of you face to face. It was a pleasure. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. I know I did. And hopefully the online format worked for you very well, so you didn't have to come in and beyond class. Um, During the semester, if you have any questions or if you want to know more, please feel free to pop into my office. I'm more than happy to talk. So let's get started. So let's start with international fashion. There are four major fashion cities in the world, the fashion capitals: Paris, Milan, London, and New York City. Um, there are secondary cities that we're seeing more and more of. Korea is an up and coming in the global haute couture market. Japan is very much up and coming in the haute couture market. And maybe another city in Italy. I'm assuming Russia, probably Moscow, is going to start a meteoric rise as they have more and more buying power in Russia. um, we'll probably see China, Beijing, or Peking have a great deal of buying power. The more and more capitalist it becomes. But these are the four traditional fashion capitals, and London took a very long time for London to be accepted as a fashion capital. It was Paris and Milan, which were the two from the early 20th century. New York City kind of elbowed its way in as a sort of financial and cultural powerhouse, and then London came into its own. You can tell that these cities are international powerhouses because they have fashion weeks every season. So fashion lines go by season. So we'll see a spring, summer, and we'll see a fall, winter season. Sometimes we'll have quarter seasons, but uh, each fashion house will release a line for seasons. So you will see fashion weeks that are the large party rollout catwalk model shows of these lines from each of the major fashion houses. It's really difficult to sort of describe the characteristics of fashion by country, as we saw for a very, very long time, especially uh, the through the Renaissance up until probably the 19th century. You could tell what country was wearing what clothing. That division no longer exists because of the global market. What is foreign and what is domestic means nothing anymore. We see, as we talked about at the beginning lecture, we see sort of local cultural clothing and climate-based clothing that is very much still a part of it. But this idea of England has its style, France has its style, Italy has its style, America has its style, doesn't exist anymore. The fashion industry has been, and is becoming stronger and stronger in the worldwide exchange of ideas, talents, materials, products, what have you. So the job of the international designer has become more and more complicated as well. Long gone is the idea that we talked about a couple days ago about Charles Worth, sort of making a line and having duchesses and having queens come to him, or he go to them, and sort of suiting the clothes for the client. We don't see that anymore. And fashion designers and their assistants are becoming more and more and more busy because they have to not only manage the brand and market the brand, but also manage and market their image. In this sort of life of social media, the image is all. So, for example, a couple years ago, Karl Lagerfeld, one of the most important fashion designers of our day, he designs three major collections, his own signature line. He designs Chanel Couture and the Italian Fendi collection. Designers supervise large teams of assistants for several collections, and they're always working a couple seasons ahead. He visits factories, he attends store openings, he is a businessman and an artist at the same time. And they have to run these companies and market this brand. And one of the biggest jobs that a fashion designer does is promotion and licensing. Designer names become famous because of extensive press coverage, because of uh, who is wearing them. You'll notice if you watched anything of the Golden Globes, which was a couple years ago or a couple weeks ago, that when you look at the runway, they don't say, "Oh, this is who was it? This is famous star A who was in X, Y, and Z." They say, "This is famous star A who is wearing these fashion designers' clothing." That is a big part of it. That part of their job is getting their clothes on the backs of people who make a difference, who have a voice in this sort of society. And if they don't, their clothing doesn't get sold. They have to do press coverage, they have to do press junkets, they have their own advertising and promotional efforts. And they have to work hard to be successful in the marketplace. They also have to license their products. This is an example of Itzhak Mizrahi, who licensed his products to be sold at Target. We see this with Martha Stewart, uh, a lot of these sort of mini designers or cultural icons will license their stuff. Kate Moss had a line that was sold, I think, in Kmart or in Kmart in JC Penney's. So they have these sort of small chunks of their designer brand name that sells at a price point for all, and and it's a double-edged sword. So if you're a fashion designer and you're doing haute couture, if you're doing high-end work and you license to Sears, is it going to dilute your brand? Will everybody be wearing Itzhak Mizrahi? Rather than just the elite, the people that have fat wallets, which is what you want. One major goal of fashion business is to make money. Almost a surefire way is to market accessories and fragrances under the house. And when we say house, we mean brand name, basically. So Coca-Cola is a house. Uh, if it was in fashion, some of Walmart is a house. So this is their brand name. Um, so fashion empires are grow to the point of that international designers have become stars. We see them on the runway. We see them as part of our lexicon, as part of our a cultural understanding. Coco Chanel, you can buy Coco Chanel earrings, Coco Chanel perfume, purses. And it's not just, I think I talked about this a couple days ago, it's not just the fineness of the clothing of the brand, which when you're buying high-end brands, that's what you're getting is an excellence. But it's also about look at me, I can afford that sort of conspicuous consumption. Oh, we did talk about that yesterday. Oh, we also see fashion designers gaining business partners. Some designers try to serve as both designer and CEO, but it's not necessarily easy to do. Sometimes the designer mind is at odds with the CEO mind and they mismanage. Most designers have accountants, have business partners that take care of the business part. Giancarlo Giametti at Valentino has Giancarlo Giametti is the business partner, is the money guy at Valentino or Peter Strom at Ralph Lauren. These people manage the finances, operations, and marketing. They're basically the CEO of this global company, and they leave the design and the sort of design and image stuff to the designers. Elegance is the balance between proportion, emotion, and surprise. Valentino Garavani. One of the trends in the fashion business is to try and build powerful, complex conglomerates or corporate groups. So, a young up and coming designer who is getting their stuff worn by stars, worn by Katy Perry, worn by people who have power of style. Um, they're often they're asked to join a conglomerate, um, and this is good and bad for them. The fashion business is controlled by a very few large companies. Large conglomerates develop in an effort to have financial power to control image, source fabrics and production, and distribute worldwide. A small town De Pere designer does not have, even if somebody, a Kardashian, is wearing their stuff, they don't necessarily have the power to buy excellent fabrics at cost, um, or they don't have the means to control production. They have to get that back end of production in other ways. They don't have the resources to market themselves aggressively. They don't have the resources to distribute worldwide. So this is one way. Whenever they start, these designers, these small-time designers that might have a passionate following on YouTube or on Facebook or on Snapchat, this is one way for them to get more negotiating power, more another way to sort of con- to reach a larger market and make more money. So this is the Gucci group. Um, Probably have heard of Gucci, and these are all of the designers' labels that are underneath Gucci. So Alexander McQueen, Valencia, uh, Vitenia, Boucheron, Yves Saint Laurent, Stella McCartney, and Sergio Rossi. These are the major designers that are under this umbrella group. The French company LVHM, which is Moet, Hennessy, and Louis Vuitton, for example, owns Dior, Givenchy, Galliano, Kenzo, Celine, Louis Vuitton, Loewe, Donna Karan, Pucci, Thomas Pink, Joseph, and Sephora Cosmetics. That's enormous. Just think about how many, again, go back to the Golden Globes, how many of these names are in the common parlance, and it's all controlled by this one company. Again, the Gucci group of Italy now owns Yves Saint Laurent, Valencia, Alexander McQueen, Stella McCartney, Bottega Veneta, and Sergio Rossi. These conglomerates aggressively vie for prestigious brands. This merger is, like I said, really beneficial for could be beneficial for both parties. Um, Acquiring a designer that has a large following in the upper echelon of fashion, um, gra- uh, acquiring a designer who is sort of has a name and can make some money for the company is excellent. The corporation gains intellectual property and a brand with a brand following, and the small designer company, the small designer house, gets financial support and more contacts within the industry. So it can be excellent for a small designer to be under these corporate umbrellas. It can also be fantastically awful. Whenever you sign, especially if you're the small De Pere t-shirt designer who is making wonderful clothing, or gown designer that's making wonderful clothing, whenever you sign a contract, you could sign away your naming rights. You could sign away your lines. You can sign away your all of your design work because it's one of the ways that these conglomerates make money. There was a famous fashion designer in the 50s who signed off his name on or joined one of these large conglomerates and had them control it. There was a fight. He decided to leave, but this conglomerate still owned his name. He couldn't design anything under his own name anymore because of trademark. And to make money, this company put his name on everything. They put his name on sheets, on bath towels, on cooking utensils, on pots and pans. I think he had like there was a car, a signature car that was made with his name on it. He lost his name because it was owned by this conglomerate. So this is one lesson for all of us, that whenever, especially for you those of you who are going into business or entrepreneurship, read everything. Read every inch of the contract that you are offered, because if you sign away your rights to ownership for anything that you come up with, some corporations even try to control what you make on your own time. There have been a lot of stories of software designers who are working for a company and in their own time have come up with this wonderful app or something, and the company owns it because they signed that contract. So be really careful. Be really careful of non-compete clauses in your contract as well. Read everything. I know having a brand new job is awesome, but make sure that you get what you need as well. So let's go ahead to some of the definitions that we're going to be talking about. The couture. Couture is a French word for fine custom dress design made to measure for a particular company. A couturier is a male couture designer. A couturier is a female designer. Haute couture is the most exclusive couture. It is reserved for handmade, the best fabrics, the best workmanship, the best of the best, the most elite clothing is haute couture. Haute couture is controlled by the Fédération Française de la Couture. In France, only those selective couture creation lists are considered members of haute couture. It is high standards of excellence and special requirements. You need to be accepted into this this organization before you can call yourself haute couture. So the federation governs three types of design: so couture, haute couture, women's ready to wear, and menswear. And the Chambre syndicale de la couture parisienne is the managing body of the federation, and it dictates rules about workrooms and collections. So if you are the small depure designer, you can't call your clothes haute couture or true haute couture unless you're a member of the federation, which sounds very Star Trek if you think about it. Um, and it's to make sure that the standards are not diluted, that the standards stay high. The term haute couture is protected by law in France, and it is defined by the Paris Chambre de Commerce et d'Industrie de Paris. To earn the right to call itself a couture house and to use the term haute couture in its advertising and any other way, a fashion house must follow these rules. A design made to order for private clients with one or more fittings, have a workshop and atelier, which we'll talk about in a second, that employs at least 15 people for full time, and each season, twice a year, so spring, summer, and fall, winter, present a collection to the Paris press, a show, a runway show, comprising of at least 35 runs and exits with outfits, so 35 outfits for both daytime wear and evening wear. Haute couture has a hierarchy. So there are members that are divided into official, so French houses such as Chanel and Dior, correspondent, so foreigners, so like Armani and Valentino, and um, guest, which is new talents, and then jewelry and accessories. So the highest um, the highest fashion houses are the Chanel, Dior, that these ones are charter members of this group, or charter members, quote unquote, charter members of this group. And they are they are in all the time. They are members, they're lifetime members unless something totally goes kablooey. The correspondent members, you have to apply or vie to be let in every year. It's generally accepted that you are in if you've been in for a while, but you could be tossed out. The guests, the new talents, the up and coming, and then jewelry designers and accessory designers. So a couture business is called a maison, a house. It is where the clothing is designed, made, and fitted. We remember back in the late 19th century lecture, we saw Charles Worth's house. So clothing is all designed there, made there, and fitted there. One of the videos I've posted that you need to watch for today, I posted in Snoodle, is a from a documentary called Dior and I, and it is what happens in an atelier. The fashion houses, these are the fashion houses that are registered as haute couture. You'll notice that some of them, even those of you who are kind of fashion mavens, I don't recognize a whole bunch of these, and I'm not a fashion maven, but I do this for a living. I don't recognize some of these. And you'll notice that a lot of them are French, a lot of them are European, but the Americans are starting to make a showing in the couture business. A couture house is customarily composed of two parts. One devoted to making the clothes, the fleu, so dressmaking, so cutting, making the patterns, cutting patterns, making and stitching them like rough stitching and adding the decorations. The other is devoted to tailoring the tailleur of suits and coats. Skilled workers in each area practice the arts germane to that area. And this is from Haute Couture, which is an article in the Metropolitan Museum of Art website. Embellishment and accessories are added incrementally. Often these accessories are, we can all run down to Joann's and buy trim. We can all run down to Joann's and buy beads and lace work. But these, whenever you're working in an haute couture house, these things are made specifically for the piece. This is unique work. It is a piece of art rather than a piece of clothing at this point. With regard to unembellished garments, the modern couture house is a completely autonomous workroom of dedicated ateliers. These houses is there. This is where the clothing is made. It is not shipped off to China. It's not shipped off to Bangladesh, made and then come back. The beginning from deciding what fabric it is, sometimes making the fabric happens in the house, very rarely, but if there's something special that needs to be made, from the very start of the piece of clothing to the very last fitting happens in the couture house. This is under the surveillance of the designer. So most of the time the designer is in-house, especially as you get closer and closer to the fashion show. And the intimate connection with the vendeuse, which is the saleswoman, the person um, who is in charge of making, is in charge of the business side. Depending on the designer, the design process may either start with sketches or with a mock-up. So they would take muslin and make a mock-up of a piece. So that's called draping. And sketches start with cutting with flat pattern making. Fit, both in its tailored form and its dressmaking variant, is part of the value of couture. A designer or a trusted fitter will fit the piece to the client incrementally. Another another video that we're going to talk about in a second is men's suit making. It's the same sort of way. This when you're buying a high-end suit, it is these minute adjustments that the piece of clothing fits you perfectly. We don't get that anymore. We do best guess fittings. If it's especially if you are not of average size, sometimes things will fit loosely or tightly because a piece that you buy at Walmart or at Forever 21 or at Kmart or wherever is not made for you like clothing here. It costs approximately 1 to 2 billion a year for a large house to produce its couture collection. I think those prices are a little behind the times. I think it has gone up in price. Collection costs include fabrics, sometimes at 1,000 per yard, labor, especially made accessories, and the expense of the show itself. So hiring models, the renting the catwalk, the sound system, rent of a theater, and dinner for buyers. You want people to buy these clothes, so you're going to make them as comfortable as possible. It is all worth it for the publicity. It is publicity that drives sales of the next step down from couture, which is the ready to wear, sales of perfume and licensing business. Couture is regarded as the offering of opportunity for the purest form of creativity and fashion. We, it's often there's whole websites that are dedicated to making fun of high fashion of haute couture because it's crazy. I mean, the things that parade down the runway are insane, really, really insane. People would generally never be seen dead in these clothes. But what we're seeing in haute couture lines is we are seeing artwork. These are creating works of art, creating ideas, creating zeitgeist, if you remember that word. And this is less about clothing and more about style and the attraction of publicity. Because, yes, a piece of, so this is a John Galliano for Dior, a piece like this is hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what Galliano for Dior makes off of this dress is pennies compared to what they make off of the ready-to-wear market and the licensing market. The attachment of his name to another less expensive, more readily available piece. Other designers, so there's other theories of fashion design. Some designers like, no, the clothing has to fit the person well and has to be able to be sold. So this is the atelier. So this is the atelier of um, Christian Dior. So this is where, so they're highly, highly, highly skilled, very well paid hand manufacturers of this sort of high fashion clothing. Um, to qualify for couture creation list of the Chambre, you have to have at least one workroom in Paris, with a minimum of 15 or 20 for established houses. A couturier might have anywhere from 15 to 200 employees in one or several ateliers. In large houses where there is much work to be done, modelists work under the head designer executing the individual designs. Um, Modelistes are the liaison with the ateliers. They supervise the construction. So they're the managers, they're the boss. And they supervise this sort of, so this is a muslin piece. So this is a working garment. This is not what it's going to look like at the end. This is just making sure that the shape and the shape and the form and the elements of the piece is right before you cut. So good muslin is, you know, 50 bucks a yard, 200 or 100 bucks a yard. The fabric that this dress might be made out of might be $1,000 a yard. So you want to make sure that you get it right before you cut into the expensive stuff. Theater costume designers work this way as well. Again, we're working with very, very much smaller, a smaller amounts of money, but costume designers and their staff will make muslin mock-ups of pieces and put it on the actors, and then take it apart and use those as pattern pieces. It's a way to save money. You don't want to cut into the $100 a yard fabric until you're sure it's going to do what you want. Um, like we talk about, ateliers are separated into flou, where they make the dresses, and tell you where they specialize in tailoring of suits and coats. So that's the separation. So this is Hermes Atelier. So they're um, putting together an Hermes bag here. Pret-a-porter is the next one. It's French for ready to wear. This is the next step down from haute couture. This is mass produced as it is in other countries. Mass production makes fashion less expensive but more ethically squiffy. We'll talk about that in a second. Mass production makes is identical garments are manufactured in various sizes and colors, very close to what we wear. This stuff is still expensive. Um, Pret-a-porter is still pretty expensive. Um, and by the 1960s, designers of ready-to-wear became as influential as haute couture. So let's take a look at the difference between lines so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, how they sort of fall out. So this is an Armani haute couture line. Um, it has, and this is kind of like one of the more tame pieces. So this is day wear, uh, and evening wear that you see. So this is haute couture. We couldn't afford this on our best days. Well, maybe some of you can. I couldn't afford this on my best day. So this is the fall 2015 Armani ready to wear line. So a little bit saner, not saner. That's a bad. A little more ready to wear. So suit coats, accessories, purses, um, colorful pants. You would see this walking down the street. You could wear this. Um, this a little less, but you'll notice that the colors, the shapes, and the styles translate to the fabrics, colors, and shapes in the ready to wear line from the haute couture line. And this is menswear line. Sometimes you'll see menswear lines that are super artistic as well, but sometimes you'll see them that are, this is getting close to the ready to wear lines too. Today, ready to wear creations cost as much as couture used to. Couture creation may cost from $5,000 to $50,000. Upper end ready to wear is roughly about 1,000 to 5,000. But there's no exclusivity with this that if you buy a piece, you have to keep a piece. There's no um, and whenever if you're buying haute couture, it is one piece. If I am making a dress that is haute couture, I can only make one copy of it. That is the exclusivity. With ready to wear, you can make a dozen copies, you make 1,000 copies, you can make 5,000 copies of it. There is no exclusivity. There's the same experimentation um, with original sample garments for ready to wear as there is for couture. Much less expensive fabrics. They have no handiwork. It's not handmade with handmade lace or handmade beadwork. It's more mass produced. It's very profitable. Most of the couturiers also have, I'm going to butcher that word every time I say it, just to let you guys know. Fortunately, we're moving on to other things in a second. Have a ready-to-wear collections, sometimes with separate designers or assistants will be able to design as well. They often have specialists as their accessory designers. There are a few hundred ready-to-wear designers working. Um, and they also, another section of it, so we have haute couture, we have ready to wear, we have menswear. We also have the diffusion lines or bridge lines, which is the sort of side work of a designer. Um, so many of the less expensive ready to wear lines are shown at exhibitions at the Porte de Versailles. And some of these brands are just as famous and influential as haute couture. We normal people have less um, interaction with haute couture. We have more interaction with ready to wear. Probably most of us, okay, I'm going to talk for myself. I'll never buy a ready to wear piece, um, but I know that I can get closer to it. So then we have the diffusion line, or the bridge line. Houses create diffusion lines to sell the brand at a lower retail prices. It's a really good way to get their brand known by more people and to make more money. So these diffusion lines are licensing moments, and they could be sold at the house, sold at the designer's house, or at select chain stores, or it could be franchised as well. So, for example, Armani has diffusion lines called Armani Jeans and Armani Exchange and Imperio Armani. So they have different price points and different materials, different looks, but they're all under that umbrella name of Armani. Might not even be designed by Armani, but they have his seal of approval. So, some of the other ways people get their clothing, obviously, because you guys buy clothing, so you know, go to stores, buy clothing. But there's some other outlets. So, used clothing stores that sell by consignment, so like Plato's Closet or the Clothing Exchange. You can get your clothing from thrift stores, Goodwill, St. Vincent's, Salvation Army. The one that I really want to talk about is trunk shows. So a trunk show is when a designer or vendor brings their clothing to a boutique for a special in-shop sewing. So if any of you have visions in your head of becoming a clothing designer, this is one way to do it. So that I see jewelry or bead trunk shows all the time where a jewelry designer will bring their stuff to Rock of Ages, which is a bead store in Luxembourg, or to the Beat It painting pottery across the river, and do a trunk show, a showing of their work. You can also do craft shows. I do a lot of craft shows. I have a small business where my siblings and I sell some of the stuff we make, and I see clothing, not like high fashion clothing, but kind of simple clothing there all the time. Some of the higher end craft shows or art shows that I've been to have been like clothing, high end clothing. Wedding shows are a kind of trunk show where a company brings its goods, whether it be dresses, shoes, jewelry, DJs. It's a way for consumers to see what you have to offer. Um, and as I talked about this earlier, but as a codicil, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Savile Row. London has long been the center for tailoring for classic men's business attire, and Savile Row is the place for it. So some of the and this is a picture of Savile Row. It's a row in London where it's just it tailors after tailor after tailor of people who make bespoke, custom tailored suits. This is a suit that has is in the process of being made for a specific person. I've posted a Sunday morning that CBS Sunday morning television show did a bit about Savile Row. A couple years ago, the rents on Savile Row went through the roof, and they were um, terrified that these bespoke tailors would disappear because they couldn't afford the rents anymore. I think London has kind of put a historical marker outside of these so that they hopefully will be around for a very long time. So a custom tailored suit requires 2 or 3 fittings, takes about 6 weeks to complete, and costs between $3,600 and $9,000. One thing I'm going to take another. This is going to be my day of stump speeches. So I talked to you about contracts. I'm going to talk to you about business wear. Every one of you should get a suit. A If you're a chick or if you're a dude, if you're a woman or man, get a good tailored suit. Don't buy one off the rack because a good tailored suit is going to speak volumes about who you are, especially if you're going into specific suit-based suit-based businesses or suit-based profession. And I mean, you don't have to spend $3,600 on one, but get yourself a good one, and don't just go to Men's Warehouse. Men's Warehouse is good for your first suit, maybe have a court date, but go somewhere, go to New York City, go down to Chicago, and throw down some money. It's a great graduation gift. Is a good suit, and make sure it's one that fits you because, uh, like some of the clothing we've talked about before, there are certain um, custom tailored suits that are passed down through families. You could leave this suit to your children, and this goes for women and for men. So, why does it matter where your clothes come from? Um, Today, one of the most polluting industry in the world is the clothing industry. It is second only to oil. It's also one of the largest employers of slave and child labor. Um, what clothing does is, in its pollution, um, it uses chemicals that are harmful to humans and wildlife, um, especially where waste pipes, factory waste pipes, meet other watery sources. Not only do these chemicals poison waterways, they remain in our clothing. We get contact exposure from the clothing we make. Um, we can't make sure that all of these chemicals are out of the clothing. Make sure you wash your clothing before you wear it. Um, some of the most common chemicals are uh, heavy metals like chromium, cadmium, lead, and mercury. These are specifically used in leather tanning, and causes cancer. They're carcinogens. They cause jaundice, failure, and these are in the water systems. We also see alkophenols and nonylphenols, which are surfactants in detergents and hair products. It opens up pores to allow clothing to be washed. This is a hormone disruptor. Uh, it's especially bad for children. It's especially bad for developing fetuses, and it can impact the immune system. Azo dyes, which have replaced aniline dyes, um, and it not only is used in dyeing, but also it has a longevity for color. Um, it degrades into aromatic amines, which are carcinogenic, and to me, and per and polyfluorinated chemicals are also very, very dangerous. These chemicals are poisoning China. They're poisoning India. These are large swaths of Southeast Asia has been long-term poison because it's not only the chemicals put into the air, but it also seeps into the water table and into the topsoil, and crops are unable to grow. We also see pollution through insecticides and pesticides and herbicides in areas where cotton is grown. Um, because cotton, as we talked about before, is such a delicate plant. It needs these to make sure it grows. So a lot of cancers are coming out of this. A lot of the herbicides and pesticides are very dangerous to humans, and they aren't. Farmers are not often given safety equipment to spread these chemicals. We're seeing problems in Texas, a rise in brain tumors because of the cotton industry that is going into the groundwater and into the topsoil. Another bad part of clothing is the sort of uh, dangerous manufacturing practices that most of our clothing, 97% of all of the clothes that we buy in the United States, and 98% of all footwear is imported. China creates 30.5 billion pieces of clothing that that come into the United States. We imported $85.1 billion worth of apparel. Um, 20 countries account for 92% of all the manufacturing, and you'll notice that most of these countries um, are in developing countries, are in countries that have workers' rights, human rights, and environmental abuses. They're not countries with large oversight um, of ethics and of eco-friendly. Um, so here are some images from the textile that are it's dangerous. It's dangerous and it's hard work. Workers work 16-hour days for pennies. And if you have beading on any of your clothing, it was sewn by children, just so you know, because they have small hands. Uh, so how much does it cost to make a denim shirt in Bangladesh versus the United States? It is $10 more. Um, that is one of the things that is remarkable is that to make clothing safer and to have these people, and it's not that they want to live in luxury. They want a living wage. They want to be able to send their kids to school. They want to be able to have health insurance. They want to be able to eat good food. They want time off. It would cost us pennies on our clothing pennies for us to spend on our clothing to make um, to make people's lives easier in Bangladesh and in China, Indonesia, and Vietnam. The fashion industry is exploitive, as I just said. Excuse me. From the people making the clothing to the models, the industry thrives on mistreatment. Um, this is not a good industry for people. This is the Rana Plaza collapse in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is one of the worst perpetrators of human rights abuses. They pay their workers the least amount possible. There has recently been not riots. There's recently been demonstration to make the industry safer for better pay, for better working conditions. These businesses run the government basically, and the government has cracked down violently on workers. Um, they were unable to secure. I think I just read last week they were unable to secure better working wages. Um, so this is the Rana Plaza collapse that happened in April 24th, 2013, in the Savar Upzalia of Dhaka, Bangladesh, where an eight-story commercial building named the Rana Plaza collapsed. The search for the dead ended on May 13th, 2013, with the death toll of 1,129. Approximately 2,500 injured people were rescued from the building alive. This is considered one of the deadliest garment factory accidents ever, but it is not the only one that happened at this time. I guess a week or a month before, there was another a fire in Bangladesh that killed close to 1,000 people. This is epidemic in these countries and in the United States sometimes too, that workers are mistreated and not treated fairly, basically. This accident was caused by structural damage. The structural damage was pointed out to the owners of the building and to the managers of this garment garment factory, and the owners and managers ignored it. And they were huge cracks appeared in the foundation the day before the collapse, and the garment workers were told to come to work anyway, and thousands of them died. This is the what factory workers make in Asia. Workers in Bangladesh make between $60 and $100 a month. Um, Australian factory workers make about $4,000 a month. New Zealanders make about $3,000 a month, and it dips extremely low from there. We are also wasteful of our clothing. We're wasteful of people and we are wasteful of clothing. Out of the 25 billion pieces of clothing waste generated by Americans every year, 85% of it ends up in landfills. If you were around early last semester, me and two of the art faculty members put together an exhibit called Fashion This in the Bush Art Center, which talked about a lot of these issues. One of the exhibits we did was the clothing swap, that clear case in the middle of the Bush Art Center that was held 70 pounds of clothing. The average American throws away 70 pounds of textiles a year. That is 2.5 billion pounds of clothing that end up in landfills. And a lot of times, our clothing, especially if they are polyester, spandex, nylon, rayon, any of the oil based products, do not degrade. They don't fall apart like organic materials do. The problem with fashion is there is a fashion paradox. One report puts the global industry at $1.2 trillion. That it it employs a billion people in the fashion industry. 250 billion spent in the U.S. alone. So what do? We stop buying clothes, and people aren't getting paid in Asia. How do we work this? How do we make this work? If we don't buy, they won't get paid. Yes, but we also have problem with supply chain. There is I have posted for you guys to watch a last week tonight with John Oliver report on fast fashion. And this is part of the problem. He goes into the supply chain, but part of the problem is so we have a company here like the Gap, and the Gap is committed because it's bad for their brand to ethical and environmentally responsible clothing, to sustainable clothing. So the Gap tells their manufacturers that they're buying clothing from. So we need you to be ethical and ecologically ethical. Um, and the company says, yeah, absolutely, we'll sign a pledge. We'll sign 3 pledges, sure thing. The Gap asks the company for more clothing than it can manufacture. So it goes to a subcontractor. It goes to another factory. It says, hey, we need X amount of clothes by Tuesday. Can you make it happen? And this company says, sure, no problem. Now, the Gap has now become divorced from the supply chain. They do not know who is making their clothes. And it is really, really difficult to know who is making their clothes. They don't know who. So what happens in modern clothing manufacture is so you have one group of people, one company that is that is raising the cotton. So say we're buying a cotton shirt. We have one company that is raising the cotton. We have one company that is cleaning the cotton and getting it ready to be spun. We have another company that spins the cotton. We have another company that weaves the cotton. And this is extreme, but this is what could happen. So maybe we have one company that is raising the cotton, second company that is spinning and weaving the cotton into fabric, a third company that is manufacturing the clothing, a fourth company that is buying the clothing that is made by this subsidiary company, a fifth company that is shipping the clothing to the United States, a sixth company that is moving the clothing from the dock in Los Angeles to the distribution house, a seventh company that is shipping from the distribution house to the Gap stores, and the Gap store itself is the eighth company. So there is 8 individual companies in this very simple supply chain. Um, the Gap feels it cannot be held accountable for every single piece of that supply chain. It has stated that it has contracted with this one company, and this one company has said they would be ethical, and that's they've done their job. The other problem with fashion, this fashion paradox, is shopping makes us feel good. I was having a bad day yesterday, so so what I did to calm myself down and kind of feel good is I went on Amazon and I shopped. I went on eBay to look for I need a set of carding paddles to I have a bunch of wool I need to card. So I went on eBay and I shopped. I didn't buy anything, but shopping makes us feel good. It is psychologically proven that shopping does something to us. It releases some sort of chemical that makes us feel like we have accomplished something. It's addictive. If you go onto YouTube, you can see these predominantly women, young women who do haul, HAUL shopping, that they go out and they buy and buy and buy and then show you what they've bought. Um, and it has been marketed as our patriotic duty. I don't know if you guys remember, but right after 9/11, um, of course, people were staying home because this huge bad thing happened to our country. George W. Bush, the president of the United States, got up in front of us and said, go back out and spend money. It is your duty to spend money. And then there's the pleasure of getting a bargain. So there is a lot of problems with fashion, um, mostly because fashion kind of affects us in many different ways. So what is fast fashion? And so fast fashion is like fast food. This is what we call the sort of problem that we're having today is the problem of fast fashion. These are some of the posters that I made for our Fashion This project. Um, so normally back in the 60s and 70s, new clothing lines would come out 4 times a year. You would have your spring, you would have a summer, you would have a fall, and you would have a winter. This is when you would buy your clothes. Nowadays, we see new fashion in the stores every 6 months or every 6 weeks. Garments are made as cheaply as possible and as quickly as possible in sweatshops for people working 12 to 16 hours a day and earning 12 to 15 cents an hour. These garments are poor quality, manufactured to be thrown away. In your clothing audit, the one thing that a lot of you had was t-shirts, that you have these t-shirts and t-shirts and t-shirts that you might not wear all the time, but you save them. Um, and they're manufactured for disposability. This clothing is manufactured that you wear it once and you throw it away. You wear it once and you pop it in the back of your closet. You wear it once, you never wear it again. We are taught, we are learned, we have been um, made used to this idea of buying clothes quickly and throwing them away. We throw away 70 pounds of clothing a year. Most of this clothing ends up in the landfills. Um, so we have to think about sustainability. So what is sustainability? Sustainable developed by the Brundtland Report for the World Commission on Environmental and Development has defined sustainability as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Um, Creating business models that balance ethical, ecologically, and financially stable. It is possible. There are many companies out there that are holding to this paradigm of the triangle of ethical, ecologically, and financially stable. And people will spend money on clothing that makes them feel good. So not just buying a pair of jeans, but buying a pair of jeans that. How many of you wear? What are they? Bobs? No, the Bobs is Toms. How many of you wear Tom shoes? Why do you wear Tom shoes? Well, they're comfortable, but you can get a pair of shoes probably a little bit cheaper that are just as comfortable. It is a way for you guys to, for those consumers, for people who buy Toms, to do something good. People will pay extra for this. The idea that long-term planning outweighs short-term profits, reducing our negative impact on the environment. And this is even more important in the current political climate, and recognizing the dignity and worth of all people. We need to ask ourselves, how do we love all the children of all the species for all time? And these are some of the seals that you'll see whenever something is sustainable. There's a couple revolutions, a couple of sort of social media revolutions about who made your clothes. These are the worst offenders of fast fashion. So H&M and Zara and the Gap are the three most. Forever 21 is pretty terrible. Benetton, which is hysterical. We just saw yesterday that the United Colors of Benetton, that they had this sort of global sensibility in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, and here they are, one of the worst offenders of fashion. Um, this top was made for $60, bought for $50, or for 60 cents, bought for $50. There are things that we can do. We can fix this. This is not an instantly solvable problem. This is not about changing everything. This is about you can make small changes. It's about being more mindful and being informed. This is about seeing that there is a large scale problem with this that all of us have to solve. So here are 10 things for those of you who might have seen my lecture Whenever I did it for SNC Day, I also talked about this. I talked about this a lot last year or last semester. So these are some of the things you can do to help with this sort of clothing crisis. First thing is to learn how to repair your own clothes. Even you dudes, even you guys can attach a button. Don't throw away a piece of clothing just because you lost a button. Don't throw away a piece of clothing just because it has a tear in the knee. There's other simple fixes that you can do with very quickly, very easily. Learn how to do it and teach others how to do it. Donate your clothing. This is a win-win. There is an article I posted on um, that I want you guys to read in Snoodle about where do your clothes go when you donate your clothing to Goodwill. Where do they go? With donating your clothes, I prefer St. Vincent's just because my grandma used to volunteer there, so I have very fond feelings for St. Vincent's. A lot of these companies are sort of faith based, so if that's your jam, this is a good way to sort of support your faith. You help out the community. They're often, especially like St. Vincent's and Goodwill and Salvation Army, that they help out the poor. They help out people with job training and funds and just general good stuff. Help your closet. You don't have to carry 400 pounds of clothing back to your house, back home at the end of the semester. Help the earth. That's the one thing I will say at the end of the semester. Don't throw your shit away. Excuse my language. Service learning, I think, or housing, REA on campus has bins that you will be able to donate. So don't throw away your microwave, donate it. Um, and we're working on a way to do that with clothing as well. You can recycle your clothes. This bin you will see this bin everywhere. It is for profit, but that's still okay. And they'll take any piece of clothing as long as it's not wet or mildewed. And they'll turn it into something else. So rag rugs, dog toys, stuffing for camp beds. They'll make other clothing out of it. They'll make household rags out of it. Buy secondhand clothes. So go to thrift stores, go to St. Vincent's, go to Goodwill, go to consignment stores. And this is a cultural thing. There is a school back east. It starts with a B, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But they have this sort of uh, culture of secondhand, that if you are seen with a new piece of clothing, like a brand new name brand clothing, you're going to get kind of like looked down on. The person who has the best secondhand closet is the person who wins, I guess. You can buy clothes online at places like ThreadUp and The Attic or eBay that sell secondhand or second run clothing, or clothing that has not made it to the stores. Do your research. Find out where you can get the best secondhand clothes. You'd be amazed at what you can buy on the internet. Shop less, spend more, buy well. If you buy clothing that is better made of better fabrics, it's going to last longer. You might spend more, but you'll spend less in the long run. And support fair trade. You might think of your closet as basics plus. So, what is fair trade? Create opportunities for economically and socially marginalized producers, develop transparent and accountable relationships, build capacity, promote fair trade, pay promptly and fairly, no child labor, no forced labor, no discrimination, good working conditions, respecting cultural identities, and respecting the environment. Um, but the big thing is there's no government oversight, so anybody can say they're fair trade, just like saying you're organic. Anybody could say they're organic, but you can put an organic label on just about anything, and the government won't stop you. But the same thing with fair trade. So be careful of buying fair trade. Just make sure you do your research. And that is key to a lot of this. Be aware of fibers. We had talked about earlier about how bad cotton is. Try to buy organic cotton. Cotton, as I said before, is one of the most pesticide dependent and water greedy materials manufactured. Organic cotton still is water greedy, but it's not pesticide dependent. You can buy clothing with other natural fibers, flax, bamboo, hemp, modal, which is made from beech trees in Austria, I think. silk and soy. These are renewable resources, not uh, resources that can be replanted and reused. Each of these materials has its own disadvantages. There is no material that is perfect. Um, Flax is expensive and labor intensive. Bamboo is has to be chemically processed, chemically-ish processed. Hemp the same way. So each of these has their own different disadvantages, but what we're trying to do is mitigate the damages. Man-made fibers like nylon, polyester, rayon, acetate, acrylic, or spandex are really problem materials. They're chemically based, oil based, and don't biodegrade. So, um, but it's a balance about what you're going to buy. This is not an all end all and be all. This is making small changes. Wash cold, hang dry. There's new laundry detergent that'll allow you to wash. It costs energy to heat up water to wash, to do a warm wash or a hot wash. And most of us don't wear our clothes hard, um, so we can do a cold wash in it. Certainly, I just bought Tide for cold wash, and we're gonna see how it comes out. Here's hoping. Hanging out your clothes as well. It doesn't use the dryer, which uses electricity, and all of this will make your clothes last longer. Don't buy new leather. New leather is one of the most polluting processes for clothing, for garment processing, manufacturing. It's really awful for the people that are working in it and the land around it. So try not to buy new leather, buy old leather. So if you're looking for a leather jacket, go on eBay, go on Craigslist, go on ThreadUp and buy an old leather jacket. You can find them for fairly inexpensively, and especially if it's an older jacket, it'll probably last a little bit longer. You might have to oil it to get back its sort of suppleness, but again, you're taking a piece out of the sort of um, tanning cycle. You can also there's this new stuff called Pinex, which is leather made from pineapple leaves. It's brand new. I think Adidas just put out a pair of shoes that are made from Pinex, and it's a little high end, but it's kind of spectacular. And hopefully it smells like pineapples because that would be awesome. Don't buy products made with mica powder. This is especially for makeup because mica powder is mined in India and there's no oversight, there's no governmental oversight. So the mines are um, really unregulated. So a lot of people are dying to give us sparkly things. And they also employ children or employ, they also use children so this is a young um, blind child who is picking through a dirt pile to get the mica chips out. So don't buy things with sparkles in them. Buy local, shop wisely. Buy from companies that are committed to ethical practices. You can ask. You can go into a store, a local boutique, and ask where they got their clothes from. Um, Force change with your wallet. That is what companies are afraid losing, of losing their consumers through unethical practices. Your beauty should not come from other people's pain. This is the hard one. This is a really hard one. This is a really difficult one, even for me. Um, don't don't do commemorative T-shirts or do less commemorative T-shirts. I know T-shirts are super cheap, but for the fashion this, I did a T-shirt project, the 500, it's the 1,000 T-shirt project, but I ended up using 500 T-shirts, and I bought them from thrift stores and stuff for pennies, and you would not believe how many Turkey Trot T-shirts I had my hands on. And Turkey Trot is the sort of festival foods holiday run, charity run. There were thousands. Um, how many T-shirts, how many commemorative T-shirts do you own and not use, you not wear anymore? How many commemorative T-shirts do you get for just showing up? For those of you who are leaders of groups, think of something else. I'm sure there's other ways you can commemorate than using a T-shirt, because T-shirt is there is. I have a Planet Money sort of long form report about how where do T-shirts come from. So make sure you watch that. It's in our Snoodle page. So think about, why do you want to commemorate something, and is there another way? Get a tattoo. Be informed, research, read your labels, look for ethical and sustainable company. Think about who makes your clothes, and just research. Research will save your life. And here's some of the futures of fashion. 3D printing is becoming a big thing in fashion. Uh, Play with our 3D printers over in the library. They're pretty spectacular. I'm actually making a dress for a juried show out of, not something like this, of course, but I'm going to try and make a 3D dress too for a gallery show. But go ahead and play. I think this is kind of what we're going to be doing. They now have 3D printing that prints in other materials, not just this sort of plastic, eco-plastic, but also metal and aluminum and food. You can print in peanut butter if you want, or print in chocolate if you want. We're going to see smart fabrics that sort of change as we uh, that monitor us and change as we need it to. So fabrics that get cooler or warmer as necessary, fabrics that will protect us from the environment better. We're starting to see small artisanal fashion, bespoke fashion, fashion that is made, the Etsy revolution, fashion that is made particularly for us. Um, the shop local movement will continue. The craft revolution, make your own damn clothes. You can make your own clothes. Just so you guys know, it's totally legit. You'll have to learn how and buy a sewing machine, um, but you can do it. You can make some pretty nice stuff for fairly inexpensive. Eco fashions, just like like we talked about, and sustainable fashions are the big thing. So that is the end of this PowerPoint. Thank you once again. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed putting this class together for you. If you haven't yet, fill out a slit. Tell me what you think. If there's something I can change to make it easier or better on you, um, because I don't get to talk to you, I don't know. So please let me know. Thank you.